That's perfect. Welcome,
All right.
Philip.
All right.
Thank you for joining me here today on my first podcast, Slaying the Dragon.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's very exciting.
No, it's really good, and it's wonderful to be part of your podcast today and be part of changing people in the world and giving people a new pathway and opportunities to be the best they can from the inside out.
100%. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for your time here today. So I really do believe 100% that if our world doesn't fall apart, if we don't push the boundaries, if we don't challenge the status quo, we really don't know what we're fully capable of.
That's absolutely. I mean, I think part of the thing is, as a human being, it's a bit like being a teenager. You've got to learn to push the boundaries. You've got to be
that far back.
You've got to be expansive, and part of that is if we stay in our comfort zone, then nothing changes.
100%.
We may be comfortable, but we don't grow. We don't learn how to be the best we can be. We don't access all of the wonderful parts of us that are still waiting to be there. It's a bit like getting a new phone and only making telephone calls and not discovering there's video editors and apps for this and you name it on the phone. We're a human being. We have so much potential, so much possibility.
You know, I honestly believe we need to learn to love the word failure. So many people just hate the word failure and will not go near the conversation. But I do believe if we can teach our kids to fail and have a conversation around the dinner table, what went well for you today? What didn't go well for you today? And what do you need to change to get the results? What do they look like? You know, and teach kids to push past that safe zone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's more than teaching them, it's giving them permission to fail.
100% without the judgment.
One of the things that's helped me get to where I am in my life is because I pushed the boundaries and I failed heaps of times. Like I failed. I had to learn to pick myself up, dust myself off, learn the lesson, action the lessons and create a new pathway. But the failure was an important part of it. Everyone sees, especially in today's world. I mean, I deal with mums and dads and students and kids doing HSCs, and so many of them are frightened of failing. They're frightened because...
And why do you think that is, Phil?
I think because they feel there's shame to it. They'll let their family down, that they'll be seen as not good enough, or they'll be seen as hopeless or useless. I think failure for a lot of people means that they're no good. And it impacts their self-worth, self-esteem, and the way they see themselves, but more importantly, the way they show up in the world.
And where did they learn that fear of failure or that shame? Where did that initially come from, do you think?
Well,
no judgment here.
There's no judgment at all, but I think there's aspects of society. When I was growing up, it was all about, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that people, saw the family as doing okay, or if they were, if there was something going on within the family, I'll keep it behind closed doors. We don't want people to know that we're a dysfunctional family, or that, your father's lost his job, or your mother's, got mental health issues, or all of these different things. And because they're worried about being judged. They're worried about not fitting in. And as a human being, there's a couple of things that essential for us to shine bright and have the capacity to fail. One is we want to be loved. We want to belong.
Need, isn't it?
And we want to be able to enjoy life the way it should be enjoyed. But if we don't love ourselves on the inside, we're never going to belong. If we don't belong to ourselves, we're again going to stay isolated, and we're going to stay in that little bubble. It's critical, to be able to love ourselves from the inside out, to have the capacity to fail, and better still, have the support of people behind us, our family behind us.
Without judgment.
Without judgment. I'd say to my kids when they were in school, I said, I don't care about the marks. Don't care about it, because I know you'll do very well at the stuff you love doing.
That's right.
I said, but what I do care about is how you show up. how you show up, and if you give it a crack, if you give it a red hot, honest crack, then I'm happy, I'm proud. But if you're just going for marks, don't bother. It's like people who, chase money in this world. If they're just chasing money, they're going to be very empty, very unrich people on a spiritual side or a human side. They might have money, but let me tell you, there's going to be a deep, dark void there they're going to still try and fill.
That's right. Have you had a moment where you were challenged with that status quo, where you were forced up against the dark night of the soul? Just one moment. I know you've probably had quite a few.
I've had many.
Yeah, 100%.
I was thinking about this when you invited me to come on this podcast, and I was thinking of different ones. And I think probably the darkest one, which is going to sound strange to a lot of people, it was being held captive to a promise. Being captive to a promise took me to the darkest point of my life. It took me to the edge of.
Can I open up this and ask what the promise was? Remember, it's
absolutely.
It's raw, wild, and real. Let's get messy.
I'll give you the context around the promise.
Okay.
When I was in my early to mid 20s to mid to late 20s. I was young. I had that youthful entrepreneurial arrogance that, everything's going to be great. I'm going to be success. I'm going to be retired by 40. I'm going to, create this massive empire and all of this. And it was, because being a product of the 60s where you grew up with not much at all, we'd get one Christmas present each. Birthdays often got just one present. And the 70s came along, and then the 80s came along. And the 80s were, if anyone's ever seen the movie Wall Street and Gordon Gekko, and it was like, yeah, let's go for it. Everything's possible. Nothing's impossible. We can do it. So I had this youthful, I'm going to call it youthful entrepreneurial arrogance that I couldn't fail. As long as I put all my effort into it, I couldn't fail. And comes back to the word fail. And then I met the girl who's become my wife, and I remember her telling her story of where her dad hit some tough times and they lost everything, and they ended up all being squeezed into a small, very, very small 2-bedroom unit above a fish and chip shop. So they'd gone from a beautiful waterfront home on Sydney Harbour to above this little old fish shop. All of the whole family, everyone's jammed in. And there was a lot of shame attached to it for her and the family. And in my youthful entrepreneurial arrogance, I said, don't worry, I'm never going to let that happen to you, and I'm never going to put you down that path that happened when your dad lost everything. And at the time, I truly believed it. Fast forward probably close to 4 years, and I found myself sitting in the gutter, my head slumped into my hands, almost in the fetal position, going, my God, I'm such a failure. I've failed as a business person. I've failed as a husband. I've failed as a father. I've failed everyone around me who had belief in me, because we lost everything, because I signed a piece of paper to become a director of a friend's company to help them. And, in that entrepreneurial arrogance, I said, look, if I'm going to put a little bit of money in to help, I should have a little bit of control. So I became a director. And in Australian law, being a director of a company, that ends up failing. And it was about 7 years later that it failed, ultimately the company. But what ended up happening was, everything, it was like a vacuum. I lost everything that I'd worked for. We lost our home. I'd lost a number of investment properties. I'd had someone in my life who, for want of a better time, misused a whole lot of savings that I had that disappeared. And I was a failure, and I was to the point of believing that I couldn't go on. I just was I was in the abyss. I was looking at ways of taking myself off this planet. I was looking at ways of, taking my wife and 2 little kids off the planet because I didn't believe they'd be able to survive, and I didn't want to be without them, and I thought we should be a family. And it was a horrible, horrible, horrible time. And and that time went on for a number of decades because unfortunately I was the one who had the ability to try and get us out of it. No fault of my own other than signing a bit of paper. It was a
So how did you slay that dragon?
I slayed the dragon the seed to sowing the seed to sowing the dragon was my was my beautiful wife.
You were in the gutter. You were out. You felt like there's nowhere to move forward.
And I was.
There was that light. It's like the shield has been pierced, and the light that came through, and you have had this light bulb moment, this epiphany. What was that one single moment, that thought that turned the darkness of the soul, that dark night of the soul? What turned it around into the light?
The inflection point of change was when two parts. The first part, my wife put her hand around my shoulders and said, "We haven't lost everything. You've still got me and two beautiful children."
That's beautiful. So you had something to work for.
I had something to work for. And the second one was my great mentor and great friend, Dr. Gordon Brinsmead, looked at me and he goes, "What's happened?" And I said, "Oh, no, it's all right, mate." Like being an Australian male, you go, "Oh, she'll be right, mate. I'll be right." And he goes, "No, I know you. Something's not right." And he put his arm around my shoulder and said, "It's only money, mate. It's only money. You can do it again. You're smart. You're a great mind. You're a hard worker. You can do it again." And he said, "You got a wife. You got two beautiful children. Suck it up. Get on with it, and find a way. There will be so many great lessons
in your pocket
in this." Okay, and it was. I had to swallow my pride. I was sat on my ass in the biggest way possible. And a little segue here. You know, many years later, I remember when my eldest of my two kids was 19 and 17, and we were sort of talking about the hard times, and most of their life we didn't have much. I had to work, and all the money I was making was going to pay off these debts of this other company because it was my name on everything. But I remember they both said in unison, they go, "Dad, it was the best thing that ever happened to you." I went, "What? The best thing?" And they said, "It was the best thing. You were sat on your ass, you pulled your head in, and you were able to teach us the value of life, the value of family, the value of consistency and resilience and tenacity, and the ability to never give up because you had something to fight for. And what to fight for was Mum and us. And you never gave up." So yeah, it's a really interesting little journey. It's a bit like being a gaffer taped to the front carriage of a roller coaster naked, and it never stops. It's just relentless. It's a relentless.
Isn't it? And so the epiphany, the mentor, and what was the journey out? You know, the initiation steps, because it's never easy, is it? It's always
it was yeah, you talk about the dark night of the soul. I'm telling you, it was like I was trying to fight my way out of a dark forest through the underbrush. I couldn't give myself the luxury of giving up. I couldn't give myself the luxury. I just had a very firm image of holding my children and my wife tight and being able to fight my way through everything, through hard work, through resilience. And one thing I vowed to myself, which also gave me a lot of fuel in my tank, was I vowed in that gutter after Dr. Brinsmead had chatted with him and Maria had chatted with me, that at some stage of my life I was going to find a way to put back into society, to give a voice to the people who didn't have the courage to have a voice, and to give a ray of hope to the people. and to give people a ray of hope from which to follow, like a lighthouse on a dark, stormy night. And ultimately, I was able to do that through combining with another guy, and we created a nationwide charitable event called the CEO Sleep Out for the Homeless. And so we're able to do that. And for many years, I was driving it from behind and getting high-level people on board to raise a lot of money and create a lot of programs for the homeless and for domestic violence. And it's still going today. I've stepped away because anything has to be able to stand on its own legs. And it's still going today. And after, I think my involvement was the first 14 years, almost 15 years. And then, it's that's part of the legacy of me being in the gutter.
And what did that bring to you? Like, you got behind and you started coming out of the gutter, you started empowering other people because it was your empathy, your compassion.
Yep.
And then what was the next step? How did you there were obviously more challenges, because I do believe a deep initiation isn't just one magic.
Oh yeah, no. There was
what did you have to do with yourself personally to hold yourself in a strong place, to keep getting out of the gutter, to keep moving forward? That day, each morning when you couldn't get up, you felt like you couldn't face the world in case you failed again. How did you change your self-talk? What was your key answer at that point?
My key answer to myself was, remember what I'm fighting for. And it wasn't
your wife and your kids.
My kids. It was to show my kids. But more than importantly, I'd also made a promise to my mum, because my dad was killed when I was 25, and I made a promise to my mum that I'd look after her and make sure she's okay until she takes her last breath. So that held me fairly hostage as well, of being a dutiful, good, caring, loving son. My mum passed away 2 years ago at the age of almost 93, and I'd upheld that promise. So not only did I had my own family to look after, I had a mother I'd made a promise to help look after and guide as she slipped into old age.
How did you make that self-talk positive? What was your daily?
I just had to keep surrendering. I just had to go, it's not about me. I'd say to me, Philip, it's not about me.
But how do you surrender, Phil, under that much pressure? And you've made two promises that you were really challenged in keeping. How did you do your own self-care? Because I do believe...
I kept talking to myself. I kept my little Philip that exists in me. I talk a lot about little Philip.
Little baby Philip. I like that.
Yeah, little 6-year-old Philip. And I'd say, come on, buddy, I love you, I care for you, and I know you're there with me, but together we can do this. It was a verbal conversation. It was a mental conversation. It was a spiritual, non-verbal conversation. And I did, and I had to remember, if I could help others, I could also feel that I'm leaving some sort of legacy. I mean, it's like, as arrogant as that sound, it's not about going, oh, look at me, look what I've left. It's not about that. It's about creating a fuel in my system that allows me to keep bringing the best of I can. Now, many people...
I can feel that in my heart and in my solar plexus.
It is. It's infused in me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I look after thousands of people every year in helping be their guiding light in this world. Now, one of the other driving forces, as you're talking about, and self-talk was, how do I show up? Do I show up and pretend everyone I'm happy on the outside? Do I show up and
putting the mask on, isn't it? To pretend
the mask, or do I own the bullshit like, everything's fine, or do I become the most authentic me that I could ever be? And being an authentic person, it's not just about things you do, it's actually being transparent, it's being true, and finding ways to have your own trauma, your own journey as a teaching tool to help others. Now, I remember I had a guy into the clinic, and he sat down and he goes, I said, how can I help you? And he said, oh, mate, he goes, I'm stuffed. Mate, I am a breath away from leaving this world. And he goes, but you wouldn't understand what it's like, mate. He said, He said, I've lost everything. I've lost everything. And I held his hands and I said, let me tell you a quick story. And I told him an abridged version of my story. And I said, we're going to get through this. You and me, I'll walk beside you. You've got to do the work. It's okay. It's okay. And the fact that he knew in an authentic, real way that I totally understood where he was at. And yet at the same time, I was like a lighthouse on a stormy night. And he saw the glimmer of hope. And today he's got back on his feet. He's still with his family. And he's starting to make a better way through life. And that's been many, many years.
And so the return back into, your old self, is that really possible, or is enlightenment?
Into my old self, into the arrogant, entrepreneurial, youthful Philip? No.
Because the old people all recognise you as the old Philip. And
yes.
You've experienced times where they say, well, Phil, you've changed. What's happened to you? How many times did that happen? How did you return back? Or is there no returning back, that you accept, okay, it's done, it's dusted, and now you're presenting the new you, but you're remembering the movie. And if you see yourself as the lead actor in your movie, the segue through all of the chapters, how do you navigate that path and explain it, or pick up the pieces to move forward? When you came out of the gutter, let's just go back. When you came out of the gutter, you had your promise, you connected, but there's a gap there. And so that everyday routine, you kept yourself positive. What was your daily routine? I think sometimes we forget the simple things in life that hold us into a state of, I can do this, I can slay the dragon. I just have to remember to breathe. I have to remember to still my mind. I have to remember to focus on what's most important. Mm-hmm. And that's easier said than done. I do sometimes when we've gone through that. Yeah.
It's tough. You have to own it, Elizabeth. You have to be totally invested in it. Like my routine, I'm very routine driven, and part of it was because that routine allowed me to hold myself together.
Okay.
And
how did you do that? What was your routine? What did that consist of?
I wake up. I'm going to start with just when I go to bed, because it's my waking up. The start of that was when I go to bed at night. And what I would do is I closed my eyes. I would go through a space of gratitude for everything that I'm grateful for in my life: the ability to breathe, the ability to see, the ability to feel, the ability to guide people. I'm grateful for the beautiful wife I have. I'm grateful for the children in my life. I'm grateful for the people who entrust their health and well-being, mentally, socially, physically, emotionally, and mentally, to my hands. I'm grateful just to see the blue sky. And so I go through this great level of gratitude. I go through the gratitude of my father being killed. Now, that's a strange one. That's a whole nother.
That gave you. Yeah. That's an interesting journey.
I went from the wild child to the responsible adult overnight. And it basically, it was, mate, you got to step up. No more wild boy, no more party boy. You got to step up. This is Dad. My dad handed me the baton and said, you got to step up. And that in itself was part of the thing. And I was grateful for that. And at times I was also really angry, like I was having a great time. But in the dark and the light, it's like, it's a bit like, and this is an analogy for your listeners and viewers, my life was like I had one leg either side of a razor blade that gently grazed my scrotum. That was my life. After my dad was killed, after I'd lost everything, that was my life. I had to be focused on what path I was going. And I knew that path had to be more than me. It had to come from a deep part of me.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it had to come from something more than us.
Oh, God, I'm a journey. I'm on the journey, but what drives me comes from the inside. Yeah. It has nothing to do about money. It has nothing to do about things. It has everything to do about being able to put my head on the pillow at the end of the night and breathe. today a good day. If today was my last day, how would I see my life? And I do that every night. If today was, because my dad went like that, a number of friends have gone like that, I go, and I will not allow myself to go to sleep unless I am satisfied that I have brought the best of myself to my day and the best of myself to those around me. Even though that might not look like it in reality at times, but from the inside, that's where it's coming from.
And I think you've summed it up actually so beautifully, because our life really is messy. When our world falls apart, it's messy. We collapse into this great mess. And it's the shame that we put like the mask over our face to present to the world, yes, we're happy. And what do they say? Behind that beautiful smile is a very sad, or we don't know the truth.
Well, there's a story.
There's a story. And everyone has a story, 100%.
Everyone. And sometimes the people who have the nicest faces have some of the most challenging stories.
Look, I deal with these people every day. Myself. You know, I could be going through the dark night of the soul, and I used to wear the mask beautifully. I can still wear the mask, but now I know it's time to take it off. I have a support system, and you're one of my support people. And so many times I've come to you in a dark night of the soul, where I do believe that everybody needs a support system, somebody outside of us. So you have your support system as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's not just one person to go to.
No.
We need a team.
I had a team. Around me.
Otherwise, they can become our next addiction, I think, and it stops us from doing our own work. And in that in itself can become a spiritual bypass.
Yeah. But Elizabeth, you did just hit the nail on the head. The spiritual, you've got to do your work.
You do have
it's not fairy floss and fairy tales and rainbows and crystals and sage. You've got to do the work, and it's messy and it's dirty and it's tough and it's challenging and it's in your face, and it will take you to the depths of the depths, to the highs of the highs, but you've got to do the work. You can't just sit there doing an affirmation or just simply doing a meditation. There is stuff you've got to do. And sometimes it's sitting in the shit.
I think what you just said then, affirmations don't work if they're an empty shell. And I find, 100%. I do find, affirmation, you have the beautiful, sexy, gorgeous person image of when you were 18 or 19 on the fridge, and we were all gorgeous when we were 18 or 19, but and so every time you open the fridge, you actually, it's stocked with all of the treats, the carbohydrates, the sweets, the sugars, the alcohol. The comfort zone is inside the fridge. On the outside is the goal, but on the inside is really the prison, isn't it?
It's the temptation.
And we hold ourselves prison.
I'll just do that. No one will know. I'll just take that. No one will know. It's a bit
We're lying to ourselves.
Yeah, we've got to be true to ourselves, and sometimes that truth is really hard. Now, one of the truths to ourselves that most people, or a lot of people, will find challenging is, and I did an exercise at a wellness expo recently, and I was getting people to have a chat to their mirror and looking in the mirror. And the hardest thing I did is one of my turning points. I had to get into that place of learning to love me again, or learning to love me for the first time. I think when I was little, I loved me, and I remember looking into the mirror and trying to look myself eye to eye in the mirror and say, Philip, I love you. Little Philip, I love you. And people go, that's easy to do. That's easy. No, you can look. I tried and I tried and I tried. And at the last minute, I'd glance away. I'd glance away, look down, look up, look across. And this one day, I finally held my own gaze and I said, I love you. And at that moment, my inner being and outer being connected, my knees buckled, I fell to the floor, and I curled up in the fetal position and sulked for about 3 to 4 hours.
And it's when your soul really touches base with your own authentic soul, and it's not looking at the wrinkles or the colour of your skin, or pimples or grey hairs or anything like that.
You got to love all that stuff, though.
Oh, 100%. And it's the negative and the positive. I think, marketing companies have made, their trillions out of exploiting our weaknesses. And if you get this or if you do that, you'll be happy.
Well, it's a magic pill, Elizabeth. Everyone wants the magic pill. I've been working in health and wellbeing for 37 years. Everyone wants the magic pill. And the magic pill is no pain or discomfort.
That's
I don't want any pain or discomfort. I just want everything nice. Sorry, you got to go through pain and discomfort, because that's either your body, your soul, or the world saying to you, wake up, invest in you, invest in your heart, and start to understand yourself from the inside out.
So it really is the hero's journey, isn't it? And I think like Dumbo the elephant, Dumbo the elephant's going along and life is all perfect. We don't question anything. And then all of a sudden there's a hole and we fall down the hole. Mm-hmm. And the only thing we can get out of the hole is our own resources. And those resources, again, I just want to go back, because I for the people that are watching this, they're going on a journey, but I just want them to know and to hear from you when you're at that very bottom. Mm-hmm. And if you could choose one resource that you had at the dark night of the soul, that resource that you used that ended up ultimately slaying your dragon. Let's cap this off. What was that for you? That one resource.
Hope.
Ah.
Hope. I got a little
connected to that painting that I did.
Yeah, hope. It's very important. That's why I became a wellness spiritual based chiropractor. It's not about pain and everything. Yes, we deal with all of that, but it's to give people hope that there's a brighter, better future and they can be more of who they are within themselves. Now, a couple of things as I said, I just want to jump in here on this. The hero's journey is not a circular journey. And for any of those people listening and watching, it's not like, I've been through my hero's journey and it's all good now. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. Can we hear an amen?
Oh, no. There's another one.
There is. And I got pushed to the abyss again. At this stage, probably eight or 9 years ago. And being held captive to my promises.
What do they say? Don't make promises you can't keep.
Well, I was keeping them. That's the trouble. That was putting me. That was the problem. I honour my word, right? So I kept pushing, and it got to the point where I was like a bottle of Coke with about 10 Mentos in it, and everything's expanding and going, and I couldn't let it out. And I thought the only thing I could do was quickly get in the car, and I went down to the ocean. I think I've got to get into the ocean. I need to be here for a couple of days. I just disappeared. Bang. Went to the hotel, got a room, because I thought I'm going to have somewhere to hibernate and cocoon. And the room was on the 9th floor of the Novotel Hotel in Wollongong, opposite the beautiful Wollongong North Beach. And I went there and I went into the room, I opened up the doors and there's a balcony, and every fibre in my body wanted to throw myself off. I moved the little coffee table, I stood in there. I'm going, fuck this, I've got to go. And every time I went to step over, someone would come and sit underneath. And I went, I can't do that to them. I could do it to me, but I couldn't do it to them. I couldn't do that. So I'm back in, doona over my head, shaking, crying, sobbing, holding it together, going through all these emotions. And then I think I'm okay. And I go out there, and again, this force would be wanting me to go over. This went on for hours. And then in this little diluted space of disconnection and fragmentation, I went, I've got to give the pathologist something to look at when they do the autopsy. So I went down to the seafood buffet and I gorged myself on seafood, all the things I love, oysters, prawns, and there was everything. Really nice bottle of wine, doing this. And I'm sitting there and I was angrily eating. We talk about emotionally eating. I was angrily eating. My fear was not about throwing myself off. It was just anger and frustration now. And then all of a sudden I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I stopped. And this guy who I hadn't seen probably for 6 or 7 years, our kids went through school together, lovely guy, put his hands on it and goes, "Hey, Morph, what are you doing down here?" It's almost like a quick paradigm shift. And I went, and I came up with this bullshit story. I was trying, by the time I was writing a book, and I've got to finish this book, these chapters, it's all in my head, I've got to get it out.
Put the mask on.
The mask's back on. And he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, yeah, no, I'm okay. And he kept engaging me. And then what he did is he had someone, he was onboarding to some management position. He was not supposed to be in Wollongong. The universe had not aligned. And he said, oh, come and meet the Bob, we'll call him. And I said, oh, mate. I said, look, I'd love to meet you, but I've got to go. I've got a lot of stuff to do. And this guy said, no, sit down. It's my birthday. You've got to sit down and have one drink, just one drink. And he ultimately got me to sit down, had one drink. And then when I look back, I understand what he was doing, but at the time I'm going, fuck, I just want to kill myself, right? And he goes, Philip works with all these CEOs, all these interesting people, ask him anything, like he's a fountain of knowledge. And the guy started asking me questions, I'm giving him advice and things like that. And then he leaves, and this guy, this sort of connection / friend, looks over and he grabs me by my face and he goes, what the fuck is going on? He said, that's not Philip Morphew I see in those eyes. I've seen that look in an eyes before and I never did anything about it, and not on my watch. Not tonight. And I go, what bloody look am I? And he goes, mate, you're at the edge. I'm certain you're down here to top yourself. No. He said, don't bullshit me, mate. You're not getting out of my sight all night. And he grabbed me and he took me up to his room. And here's how the funny universe works, right? It was right next to mine on the 9th floor.
Do you love that?
He took me into his room.
But you weren't alone.
He plied me with alcohol so I couldn't walk. We talked till the sun came up. He put me into the spare bed next to his. I slept it off. And then he waited. And then he looked in my eyes and he goes, it's okay, you passed it. You're not going back there, are you? I went, no, not at all. And, and we talk universal things. My dad, the last thing my dad gave me before he was killed was a life-size mobile, thing you hang from the roof of a sulphur crested cockatoo. And I always associate that with my dad. Anyway, went out to the balcony, no urge to throw myself off. And all of a sudden, this single sulphur crested cockatoo sat less than 3 feet from me. And I went, thanks, Dad. Thanks for sending Mark.
And that's a sign, isn't it? And there's that synchronicity of events that really comes. And how many times do we have, the so-called sign, if you like, or, or that synchronicity? It's a sign of hope. It's a sign that we are backed by the universe, that our ancestors are there to help us, even though they're past. And again, they're all around. When we're in our darkest moment, please, people, if you're in a dark moment, please put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, breathe in and out your nose, try and clear your head a little bit, and just know there's hope. There is hope in this world. There is goodness in this world. There are good people. There are good men, good women, good people who are fluid in their gender. There are good human beings. Never, ever, ever, ever forget that there is goodness, kindness, and love in this world, in amongst all the chaos and shit. I think that's the truth. I think that sums it up beautifully, actually. And it's not what happens outside of us. It's what happens and how we process our own internal world. And I think to not repression is one of the really deadly aspects. And it sits in every cell of our body, doesn't it? And that's absolutely what we do. We have cellular memories. And I think the problem is with a lot of so-called spiritual or religious people, the mask gets bigger because they need to meditate or they need to pray. And we need meditation. Yes. But we also need to get messy and dirty and reach out and own our own stuff. And I think when we accept that we're in this place and we need to have awareness first, don't we? We need to see it. We need to own it. We need to feel it. We accept it. And then we take action. And I think it's the action, just not any action, it's divine action. And you took the action one step at a time just to climb out of that dark night of the soul, like Dumbo the elephant at the bottom of the hole, and just one step at a time, just climb yourself out on your own resources until you could get back up for the next journey. But like you said, it's not a spiral. There will be another one. Yeah. And it is that first part after I was sitting in the gutter. I mean, to go through that journey was over 20 years. It wasn't like, it's over and done with in a week and a month and a year and 10 weeks. People, it takes time, and you're going to keep getting things thrown in your face.
But all it's doing is testing your resilience and testing your connection to hope. But there are people out there, like you said, people in the spiritual world, and I come across a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing spiritual beings and spiritual teachers and guides in this world.
Bypass beautifully and not really own their own mess.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people in there, intellectual spiritual people, who actually either haven't gone through their stuff or suppress their stuff because they are fearful of being found out. They are not being authentic with themselves, let alone the people they're working with. And the thing is, it's, in my world and my clinical world, my guiding world, years ago, I ripped off that bloody mask and I am who I am. I have no fear, no shame, no pride at letting people know that my failures and the dark holes and dark nights of the soul that I've gone through are there to help me help others. Yeah. They are, and I've got to tell you, someone said to me the other day, would you go through all that shit again? And I went, to get where I am today? Absolutely. Would I want to go through it? No. And if I had to do it to get where I am today or further, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
I'd do it again because it's an ongoing journey. It's not a finite journey, it's an infinite journey.
That's right.
And it sets us up for our ability to transition into the parallel universe when it's our time.
Yeah. Look, I think, Phil, thank you so much for your time here today. I know that we'll get you back again. I think this is only our first podcast and our first chat together. It would be fabulous to reconnect, I think. And I'd like to ask, actually, for all of the people that are watching or connecting with us, if they have any questions, it'd be great for them to be able to write down some questions so that maybe together you could answer them and
absolutely
back up.
They can send questions to you. They can go onto my YouTube, which is just Philip Morphew Wellness. There's a link there to our website and Instagram and email. Be free. But have a look at some of the videos that I've got up on my YouTube channel, Philip Morphew Wellness.
And I'll share the link of your website as well as your YouTube channel
and the YouTube
this podcast, so that when it goes live, people can reach out to you so that they can go into your wellness centre, your Camden Wellness Centre in Camden, and to contact me here at Empowered Alchemy in Elderslie.
And the other thing too is those people who can't get to me, they can get a hold of my book, Soulful Reflections, on Amazon, Angus and Robertson, Booktopia, and there are healing words and the journey. I call it the journey, spiritual journey of life. There is a number of phases. That might be another resource for those people. 100%. So it's been wonderful, Elizabeth. I feel honoured to be here, and I'm always surprised at how people pry open the oyster and everything comes out.
And the beautiful pearl can just shine itself too, can't it?
Absolutely.
I guess the pearl only exists with a lot of irritation.
It's got to have the irritation.
Really the ultimate initiation test, isn't it? We get in the clamshell and we get irritated until we become priceless.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
A bit like the diamond, isn't it? Being forged under immense pressure with the coal, we become, clarity happens under pressure, the light bulb moment, when that light is revealed.
And my final word is never give up hope. Always believe in yourself and continue to love the little person in you, and your life will be.
I think that's so important, and I do that with my clients too, that inner child work, and
absolutely and critical.
100%, and learn to just put your arms around that little baby and hug it and rock it and cry to it, lullaby, sing to it, cry with it, and just say, "I love you.
Kisses.
Thank you for loving me." Hayapovopono. All right.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers.
Right.
Over and out. Thanks, Captain.
See you. Bye.
Thanks, Phil. Cheers.